Live. I hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. If you are an American friend, I am on Instagram here and live on YouTube, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn here. I want to be able to deploy a very tactical example of some best practices. I call this window time. This is the process to being able to create a weekly newsletter. I had a customer come to me over the weekend and asked, how do I create a newsletter? And I want to be able to showcase the process so that you'll be able to create your own newsletter using an offshore team, highly affordable. So let's kind of factor in the cost. $1,000 a month, you could have a weekly newsletter running every single week. That means the creation of the newsletter that can end up on LinkedIn. If you go to my LinkedIn personal page, you'll notice that I have 2 newsletters. Number 2, that can go on your corporate LinkedIn page. You are allowed to have corporate newsletters. That means it can go on your website as a newsletter in itself, and then you can share that newsletter via email using Beehive or using ConvertKit as an example. So here is the process. If you're wondering, how does this work? Window time is very simple. Started this years ago. Back during the Sales for Life days, I was on a plane on 80 flights a year. Actually, every 8 days a year, on average, I was boarding a plane. That had me have tremendous amount of downtime in my car on the way to the airport, in the car service when I land in that country or wherever I am, driving me somewhere, in the airport itself, on the tarmac. Sometimes I'd be sitting on the tarmac for like an hour. And remember, the TVs aren't working on the airplane yet. So this is a perfect opportunity. What if I put in a headset, I made a call to the team, and I talked through a newsletter? So step number 1, you create window time is you create your favorite way to be able to communicate stories effectively with your team. So for us, we have a recurring Google Meet. I just click a button on my phone. I'm on a live call. I don't do it pre-recorded. I do it live. And our copywriter and our graphic designer sit on the call together. And I always have prepared, I take my phone, I don't have it on me. I take my phone and I have 3 stories. So for me, the way that I see a newsletter, kind of like writing a book, everything's in 3s. You think in 3s. So what I'll do is I'll jot down 3 stories. These stories will be story from the road, success, a customer story. Every time I hear a question from a customer, like I'm doing right now, I document it. I put it in my little notes. I'm going to make a newsletter sub-article based on those questions. What about fail of the week? Something that we did that was wrong, or something we're seeing customers doing that makes no sense. Remember, your newsletter, if you look at a buying journey, I got a notepad here. So a buying journey is broken out into 3 sections. The first section is called why. The next one is called how. And the last one is called who. This buying journey are the 3 stages that customers ask questions to themselves. Why? Why do I change? Why should I change? Why would I ever leave the status quo? This is where you're aiming 80% of your newsletter articles. So a newsletter will have 3 sub-articles within it. You're really touching on people shaking the status quo. But every once in a while, you want to inject, and I would say that I lean on the how a little bit more than most in newsletters. I'll add maybe my second article in the 3 is always very tactical, like I'm doing now, showing tips, tricks, and tactics. How do I make change? What are tactical steps to improvement? And then, as an example, the newsletter that I posted this morning, which is rare, I maybe bake it in once a month, is the who. I'll kind of talk about a new service that we have, a new product line, a new feature, as an example. So I'd say at least almost 80% of the articles are on why. Why change? Why you need to be thinking different? Why people are evolving and you're not, and so forth. So back to my 3 steps. I have 3 ideas for every newsletter. And so what I'll do is I get on a microphone just like this, or I literally put in the earbuds. I'll be sitting in a car, I'll be sitting on a tarmac in an airplane. I'll open up the earbuds, I'll hit the Google thing, copywriter and a graphic designer will join. And I just talk. I don't do anything else. Maybe if because I've captured a link to an article, I might in the Google chat, I'm like, oh, this is a good reference, or go to this guy's LinkedIn profile, do some research on it, or do a background check on this to kind of fill in the rest of the story. But here's what I do. I press play. Okay, article number 1. And actually, let me just pull up today's. If I go into today's that I created, newsletter, here it is here. And so what I'll do is article number 1 was a customer had asked us to be able to prospect on their behalf. It's a product we have called Digital Prospector. We used it to prospect on LinkedIn as their sellers to drive people to a live event, to coffee meetings, and to a cocktail event at this live event. We booked 46 of these meetings for them. So I'm actually telling the story. So the sub-article headline is 46 coffee meetings in 3 days via LinkedIn Digital Prospector. And the image, the graphic design, I said, hey, I had this, I want you to find a GIF or a meme of like a guy jittering with coffee. So the graphic designer finds or creates something like that. And then I start talking. Okay, so I like to think in threes at all times. So there's a framework called situation, opportunity or challenge, and resolution. It's called the SOR or the SCR. Situation was this. Customer came to us. They've got this sales team. They've got this live event coming. But they want to drive, there's 1,000 people at this conference. They want to drive them to their cocktail event. They want to have coffee meetings, but they can't do this at scale. The sellers don't have time to do this. The opportunity, though, is they've got reach and reputation for each of their sellers. And if they utilize their LinkedIn profiles, you can see what I'm doing here. I talk through the story. They're recording this conversation. They're documenting key ideas, and the copywriter is writing the newsletter. That's story 1. We'll pause. I'll ask any questions. Let's go into story number 2. Story number 2, I do the exact same thing. I'd say each story, I maybe talk for 5 minutes, just like I'm doing right now. It takes no more energy than what I am doing right now. 3 stories. Then, based on the 3 stories that I create, they'll go into our free resources library, and they'll create a call to action. It might be to download a free guide. It might be to drive people to our podcast. It might be that we're doing a live event and we're driving people there. And I would say within 24 to 48 hours, sometimes it's average about 36 hours, the newsletter comes back over to me. I do a once over in the newsletter. Maybe I'm still on, I'm in another country. I'll just kind of scroll through my phone. Yeah, I think you got all the points needed. Approved. They then are responsible. They put it onto LinkedIn. They then put it onto your website. They then load it into ConvertKit or Beehive. They share it via email to your weekly subscribers. So I want you to picture what this means. You're a CEO, you're a founder, you're the head of sales. You have more knowledge up here. You have more intellectual capital. You could forget half of your business and you know more than most customers. You've spent your whole life in this industry. And all you had to do is every week for 15 minutes, talking to a microphone like I'm doing right now, deploy these ideas to people. It's called window time. And your offshore copywriter, your offshore graphic designer will build the whole thing for you. And now you have a consistent newsletter. And so many companies want to get newsletters going, but they actually think that they need to sit there with their 10 digits and write a newsletter, which is time consuming. But we can speak hundreds and hundreds of words a minute, and you can complete that newsletter in 15 minutes. And the rest of your team, remember, $500 an hour value creation is you, the founder, the CEO, the chief revenue officer, deploying your wisdom. But the $5 an hour task is actually writing it down, putting it on LinkedIn, putting it into an email database, and getting it out into the market. So I hope you find this really valuable. It's called window time. That's what I've always kind of called it. Hope you enjoy. And I'm learning how to be able to communicate live at the same time. Great to see you on the live call. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to know more, there's up in the top corner, if I kind of look at my own live stream that way, I created a QR code. Go on to Get Leverage. You can see the services. One of them is marketing support as a service. For $1,000 a month, you could have Offshore Resources creating you newsletters every single week. So simple to do. Just do exactly what I'm doing right now. And now you have a perpetual flywheel of newsletters off to the races. So I hope you enjoy this and have a great Memorial Day.